and welcome. I am Thomas Porteus and you are watching The World Report. Let's take a look at the headlines this hour. South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol apologises to the nation in his first public comments. This comes after his failed announcement of martial law. Later, an impeachment failed in the parliament as the ruling PPP decided to boycott the voting of the motion. In the latest major gain for Syrian rebels, Syrian city of Dara has been captured after the successful takeover of the key cities of Aleppo, Hama and Homs, inching closer to Damascus. Notre Dame Cathedral reopens in Paris after 5 long years after the fire mishap. Next, US President Donald Trump, Prince William, Zelensky and others attended the ceremony. Israel's new attacks on Gaza hospital leaves at least 29 people dead. There are also reports of multiple raids across the occupied West Bank. Amid the intensifying war between Russia and Ukraine, Russia strikes Zaporizhzhia, setting a station on fire, claims at least 11 lives. A top Romanian court annuls presidential election result. Analysts say the ruling may erode institutions and trigger protests. Police appear to be closing in on a man suspected of gunning down United Haircare CEO Brian. Latest in the investigation reveals a backpack has been found, which is reportedly a possible link to the gunman. Syria's map is being redrawn once again. A week of rebel advances has shaken President Assad's regime to its core. Major cities are falling like dominoes and regional powers are scrambling to react. What does this mean for Syria's future? Let's take a look at the report.
A dramatic turn of events in Syria. Islamist-led rebels have captured Dara, the cradle of the 2011 uprising, dealing a major blow to President Bashar al-Assad's regime. It's the fourth major city to fall in just a week. Social media shows celebrations erupting in Dara as rebels enter the city. Army forces reportedly struck a deal for safe withdrawal to Damascus. For locals like Maya Azad in Hama, this offensive has brought a glimmer of hope. But the situation is volatile. Rebel forces are now advancing on Homs, a key crossroads between Damascus and Assad's coastal strongholds. Thousands have fled, fearing airstrikes as Syrian and Russian forces target rebel positions. Iran-backed militias and Hezbollah have been deployed to shore up Assad's defenses, but experts warn the regime is fighting for survival. Meanwhile, rebel leader Abu Muhammad al-Jolani has vowed to push further, calling for Assad's ouster. Regional tensions are also rising. Iran warns that Syria could become a hub for terrorism if left unstable. The international response has been swift. Turkey has openly supported the rebels, while the US and other global powers have called for de-escalation. In Doha, Turkish, Russian and Iranian officials are meeting to discuss a potential resolution. The swift rebel gains have reshaped the Syrian battlefield, leaving Assad's future in question. With mounting pressure on all sides, Syria faces an uncertain and precarious road ahead. What lies ahead for Syria as its civil war enters yet another critical phase? Will international efforts lead to peace, or will this spark further chaos? Bureau Report, NewsX.
Now let's take a look at some news updates from North America. Mexican Deputy Economy Minister Luis Rosendo Gutierrez said in a recent interview that his country is actively addressing US concerns over drugs and migration to protect its regional trade agreement with the US and Canada, following US President-elect Donald Trump's threat of tariffs over these issues. Mexico has intensified its efforts, including seizing record amounts of fentanyl and detaining thousands of migrants. Additionally, Mexico is considering tightening its investment screening process, drawing inspiration from the US Committee on Foreign Investment. As part of the ongoing USMCA dispute, Mexico is also awaiting the outcome of a panel ruling on restrictions regarding genetically modified corn imports, with plans to comply with the ruling regardless of the outcome. Svetlana Dali, a 57-year-old woman charged with being a stowaway on a Delta Airlines flight from New York to Paris, was released from custody on Friday. She bypassed a security checkpoint at JFK Airport and boarded the flight by mingling with Air Europa staff. The Russian-American woman faces up to 5 years in prison, but has not yet entered a plea. Dali will be monitored with GPS tracking and a curfew, staying with a friend in Philadelphia. She cannot leave the city except for court-related matters. The drugs hidden in 230 bags within 2 containers at Caucedo Port near Santo Domingo represent the largest cocaine seizure in the Caribbean. The shipment, originating from Guatemala, was en route to Belgium when it was intercepted by the Dominican authorities. At least 10 individuals connected to the port are under investigation, with authorities probing the origin of the containers. The Dominican Republic continues to be a key transit point for drug trafficking between South America and Europe or North America. A US federal appeals court ruled on Friday that Chinese-based ByteDance must divest TikTok's US operations by early next year or face a potential ban. This ruling is a significant blow to ByteDance and could affect the app's 170 million American users. Despite free speech concern raised by groups like the ACLU, the court emphasized the national security risk posed by foreign control of the platform. The decision may be appealed to the Supreme Court. Canada announced plans to enhance its Arctic security strategy on Friday, citing increasing Russian aggression and China's growing ambitions in the region. The government will appoint an Arctic ambassador and establish new consulates in Anchorage and Nuuk. The strategy highlights concerns over climate change, which would open new shipping routes and underscore the need for stronger US-Canada collaboration in securing the North American Arctic. At least 29 people have been killed after reported Israeli airstrikes on a hospital in northern Gaza. Concern has been voiced by the World Health Organization over the attack near the Kamal Adwan hospital. Meanwhile, a Hamas delegate has spoken with the Turkish foreign minister in Doha. Here are the latest updates from the conflict in Gaza.
Dozens of deaths have been reported in Gaza after another day of strikes in the Strip. At least 29 people have been killed after strikes near the Kamal Adwan hospital in northern Gaza, according to the local civil defense agency. The World Health Organization have voiced concern over the alleged attack.
So first of all night, there was heavy bombing around the hospital, around Kamal Adwan. Early in the morning, around 4 o'clock, there was an IDF tank seen outside the hospital. And through people, they were kind of informed and told that everyone had to move outside of the hospital. This kind of resulted in panic and what we understand that people started to climb the wall and to escape. And of course, and this panic attracted IDF fire. There's reported death and also detention, arrest.
The hospital attack comes a day after Israel were accused of striking a refugee camp in which at least 20 were killed, including women and children. Amid the continued military action in Gaza, a Hamas delegate has met with the Turkish foreign minister. Hamas say that Hakan Fidan highlighted Turkey's efforts to mobilize the international community toward the humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza and to work towards a ceasefire. Top diplomats from Turkey, Iran and Russia are in Doha in Qatar to discuss the Syrian rebel uprising. Turkey, along with several nations and the UN, have called for ceasefire negotiations in Gaza. But with Israeli hostages still being held by Hamas, any deal to end the devastating humanitarian crisis will require cooperation. Bureau Report, NewsX.
Now let's take a look at some news stories from Europe. In Georgia, police arrested 48 people during a crackdown on pro-EU protesters in Sliby. This marks the 9th consecutive day of demonstrations. Thousands gathered outside Parliament demanding fresh elections and a return to European integration. Security forces used tear gas and water cannons to disperse the crowds. Prosecutors with a special international court in The Hague have charged Kosovo's former president Hashim Thaki. The charges include obstruction and contempt of court. He is also charged with 4 counts of violating secrecy and 4 counts of contempt of court. The charges relate to alleged attempt to influence witnesses' testimonies in his war crimes trial. The EU needs urgent changes to strengthen its defences against Russia. Defence Chief Andreas Kalibus issued the warning. He began his role this month as the first EU Defence Commissioner. Kalibus plans to boost Europe's defence industry and rearming. He cited intelligence that Russia could act against the EU or NATO by 2030. He called for a Big Bang approach instead of small steps. Storm Dara is causing major disruption across the United Kingdom. A red weather warning is now in place. The government sent risk-to-life alerts to nearly 3 million people. Over 55,000 homes are without power in the southwest and South Wales and the West Midlands. Travel has been disrupted and the Merseyside derby is cancelled. Authorities are urging people in affected areas to stay safe indoors. Iceland has issued permits for whale hunting until 2029. The permits allow annual catches of 209 fin whales and 217 minke whales. The whaling season runs from mid-June to September. Animal rights and environmental groups have condemned the decision. Critics point out that it was made by a caretaker government. The government lost Saturday's elections. Fin whales are listed as vulnerable by the International Union for Conservation of Nature. Kosovo Prime Minister Albin Kurti visited Sarajevo on Friday. This took place despite the lack of diplomatic ties between Kosovo and Bosnia. He met with Bosnian leaders including Komšić and Denis. This visit was criticised by Bosnia's Serb leaders who opposed Kosovo's independence from Serbia. Komšić and Denis defended the visit, condemning the criticism. The latter said no one can dictate Bosnia's decisions on who its leaders meet. After 5 years of painstaking restoration, Notre Dame Cathedral will officially reopen this Saturday following the devastating fire of 2019. French President Macron, joined by international leaders, will lead a ceremony celebrating the cathedral's rebirth, aiming to restore national pride amongst ongoing political challenges. Let's take a look at the report.
A gravely weakened President Emmanuel Macron hopes to win a new lease of political life from Saturday's ceremonial reopening of Notre Dame. Joined by US President-elect Donald Trump, Prince William and other international figures, including Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, Macron will seek to present the renovated cathedral as a symbol of France's inner reserves of creative strength. In a speech marking the occasion, he will urge the world to see beyond the country's current political crisis and admire the determination, organization and hard graft that have rescued one of France's most famous buildings in just 5 years. The long-awaited event comes just as France enters a period of deep uncertainty triggered by the fall of Prime Minister Michel Barnier's government on Wednesday. A replacement has yet to be named. 5.5 years after the devastating fire, Macron had planned to make the cathedral's reopening the optimistic climax of 2024.
Je suis venue prendre des photos parce que pour moi c'est un événement historique. Je suis guide conférencière, donc j'ai beaucoup fait visiter la cathédrale. Et voilà, ça a été un moment terrible quand il y a eu l'incendie. Et voilà, pour moi c'est vraiment une joie énorme et je voulais voir tout ce qui se passe autour, comment ça se prépare l'inauguration.
Mais du moins, voilà, voir la beauté de l'éclat des pierres là ce matin, avec la lumière qu'il y a ce matin, c'est quand même très agréable. Voilà. Mais voilà, c'est surtout l'aspect des travaux moi, qui me fascine quand même. Voilà. Et d'avoir repris à l'ancienne, on a encore ce savoir-faire.
I mean, for our media group, we're really interested in the event because we don't see it as a symbolic of religion instead of a symbolic of culture and a symbol of the Paris city and French as a country.
The ceremony marks the moment that the Catholic Church retakes possession of the cathedral, ahead of the first Mass to be celebrated on Sunday. Macron visited the cathedral 8 days ago to thank hundreds of craftsmen and women, a televised tour which allowed the world a first glimpse of the stunningly rejuvenated interior. Sunday's Mass will be conducted by Archbishop Ulrich in the presence of 170 French bishops and priests from 106 Paris parishes. Pope Francis will not attend but has sent a message to be read on Saturday, with his relations with France reported being cordial rather than friendly. Bureau Report News, X.
We will now take a look at some news updates from the Indo-Pacific region. In the Australian city of Melbourne, a synagogue was set ablaze by masked arsonists. The fire started around 4 a.m. in the Adas Israel synagogue. The blaze severely damaged the building in the southeast Melbourne suburb of Riponley. No serious injuries were reported. This attack has been widely condemned. Indonesia and the Philippines finalized an agreement to reparate Mary Jane Veloso, a Filipino lady on death row for drug trafficking. In 2010, she was arrested for carrying 2.6 kilograms of heroin in her suitcase. Veloso was nearly executed in 2015. This agreement was signed on the 6th of December. It concludes a decade of negotiations. Philippine Justice Undersecretary Raul Vasquez announced Veloso's return before Christmas. A Hong Kong court dismissed jail protester Ma Chung-man's legal challenge against a new national security law. He gained notoriety for his 2019 democracy protests. Ma was initially convicted of inciting secession. His bid for early release under good behaviour omission is being denied. The THS is due to a new security law banning such provisions for national offences. One Canadian and 2 American hikers are missing on New Zealand's tallest mountain, Mount Cook. The search began when the 3 men did not show up on their return flight. Bad alpine conditions have delayed recovery efforts. As per the police reports, the 3 climbers are presumed dead. China has banned exports of critical minerals used in products like smartphones, electric vehicles, and radar systems. This is China's retaliation to US export controls on Chinese companies involved in advanced computer chip production. Both nations cite national security concerns, accusing each other of weaponizing trade. Analysts warn that the new restrictions could disrupt manufacturing and global supply chains. The Baloch Liberation Army are becoming a big security concern to the Pakistani government. They are seen as almost as equivalent as a threat to the Pakistani Taliban. The separatists killed dozens of people in the Balochistan in the southern western province of Pakistan. The BLLE, seeking independence from the government, has escalated attacks, prompting a call for updated government strategy. November saw 61 terrorist attacks. Romania's top court has annulled an ongoing presidential election after accusations of Russian meddling. This means that the entire election process has to be rerun. Let's have a look at the report.
Romania's Constitutional Court has annulled the result of the first round of voting in the presidential election, just days before the second round. It means that the entire process will have to start from scratch, with the government due to decide a date for the new vote. The now annulled first round was won by Calin Georgescu, an almost unknown far-right NATO skeptic who has previously praised Vladimir Putin. The court decision comes after intelligence documents were declassified, suggesting Georgescu benefited from a mass influence operation that was conducted from abroad to interfere with the result of the vote. The alleged effort included thousands of social media accounts that promoted far-right populist Georgescu across platforms such as TikTok and Telegram. Romanian President Klaus Iohannis stated that Romania remains a member of the European Union and a solid and secure NATO ally, speaking after the annulment was announced.
Spun asta pentru Uniunea Europeană. România este și rămâne o țară sigură, solidă, pro-europeană. Spun asta pentru NATO. România rămâne un aliat sigur, solid.
Georgescu responded to the court's decision in a public video message.
În această zi, statul român a luat democrația și a călcat-o în picioare. Decizia Curții Constituționale de astăzi reprezintă mai mult decât o controversă juridică. Ea este, practic, o lovitură de stat oficializată. Statul de drept este în comă indusă, iar justiția, subordonată ordinelor politice, și-a pierdut, practic, esența. Ea nu mai este justiție.
A new date will now be set to rerun the first rounds of the election. Bureau Report NewsX.
We will now take a look at some news updates from the business world. The European Union has struck a major free trade deal with Mescura, creating a market of 780 million people. The agreement, which could save businesses 4.26 billion annually, faces opposition from critics and France and other countries over concerns about competition and environmental impact. The US economy added 227,000 jobs in November, rebounding from October's slowdown caused by hurricanes and labour strikes. The jobless rate rose slightly to 4.2%. President Biden hailed the progress, while analysts warned job growth remains concentrated in a few sectors. Norway's sovereign wealth fund has reached a record 20 trillion crowns, or $1.8 trillion, doubling in value over 5 years. The fund, which invests heavily in global stocks, bonds and real estate, is now almost 4 times Norway's annual GDP, making it one of the largest countries, the largest in the world. The Guardian has sold The Observer, the world's oldest Sunday paper, to Tortoise Media for £25 million. The startup plans to relaunch as a liberal voice. The sale faced backlash, with staff at both papers staging a 48-hour strike in protests. A US appeals court has denied TikTok's attempt to challenge a law requiring the app to separate from its Chinese owner, ByteDance, or face a ban by January the 19th. TikTok plans to take the case to the Supreme US Court, citing free speech protections. United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson was shot dead in the early hours of the 4th of December. As the New York City police try to catch the shooter, public response seems to differ. Many are celebrating the death, as the group is responsible for denying many health insurance claims. This brings to light the flawed healthcare system in America. Here is the full report.
United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson was tragically killed in a targeted attack on a busy midtown Manhattan street during the early hours of 4th December. Surveillance shows the suspect buying water in bars before the shooting. A discarded phone and water bottle were found, with the smudged fingerprint offering limited clues. The phone may provide more evidence if unlocked. A shell casing recovered from the scene bore the word "depose" while a round had delay. Inscribed on it, terms that may allude to a common phrase in the insurance industry.
Many people passed the suspect, but he appeared to wait for his intended target. The suspect fled, first on foot, then on an e-bike, and was last seen in Central Park on Center Drive early this morning.
Investigators are considering whether these words suggest a motive linked to the practices of United Healthcare, which is one of the largest private insurers in the United States.
The motive for this murder currently is unknown, but based on the evidence we have so far, it does appear that the victim was specifically targeted. But at this point, we do not know why. This does not appear to be a random act of violence.
Thompson's murder has also fueled growing outrage over the state of American healthcare. United Healthcare, as the largest health insurer in the country, has faced criticism for its tactics in denying claims, with reports indicating the company is a leading offender in this regard. A Senate report recently condemned United Healthcare for denying essential nursing care to patients recovering from strokes and falls under its Medicare Advantage plans. The company also faces a class action lawsuit for its use of an AI algorithms that automatically deny the majority of payments. A growing number of Americans have shared their distress over the challenges they face with health insurance companies and the large profits these companies continue to generate despite the denial of critical healthcare services. Bureau Report, NewsX.
And that is all we have time for. We will be back with more news updates from across the world.
Yeah.